Why are Christians so narrow-minded? Well, if there was ever a time when it was important to define our terms, it might be here. Because the honest truth is, I really don't have much of an idea of what narrow-minded means. And I think that those who use narrow-minded as an accusation have even less of an idea of what it means. To be narrow-minded is what? Let's say this. You and I have a disagreement. I believe that the unborn should be protected by the law. You think they should not. How is my view any more narrow-minded than yours? I think I'm right, and I think you're wrong. You think I'm right. You think you're right, and you think I'm wrong. Now let's flip it around. Let's say that I believe that it's a good thing to destroy the environment, and you think the environment should have legal protections. How is my view any more narrow than yours? In the first instance, I'm affirming that life should be protected and that abortion is wrong, and you're affirming that abortion is not wrong and that life should not be protected. In the second instance, I'm affirming that the environment should not be protected and destroying it is not wrong, and you're affirming that the environment should be protected and destroying it is wrong. Same thing. I'm not saying it's the same issue. I'm not saying there's not a reason to have different views on these things, and nor am I saying I think it's good to destroy the environment. What I'm saying is that descriptor of narrow-minded doesn't make any sense why it should be applied to me, who's a Christian and who's a conservative, but not to you. Your views are no broader than my views. They just happen to be different from my views. I think I'm right and you're wrong. You think you're right and I'm wrong. So how come I'm narrow-minded and you're broad-minded? The reality is we use this word narrow-minded as a club to beat up those we disagree with. The closer meaning to it is an unwillingness to consider evidence that differs from one's own position, which is precisely what people who accuse other people of being narrow-minded are doing. They're saying, I don't want to counter your arguments. I'm going to label them something negative. Well, that's narrow-minded. Well, why? I'm perfectly willing to have this conversation. I'm perfectly willing to discuss whether or not I could be wrong. I know I could be wrong. I don't think I am, and by the way, neither do you. There's a profound difference between thinking I could be wrong and thinking I'm never right. Because, I could be right. You could be right. And I'm more than happy to hash things out. That's why I do this podcast. I'm trying to answer questions. I'm not saying that those people who disagree with me are narrow-minded because they exclude my view from the possibility of being the true view. Because the reality is I've excluded their view to the extent that I don't believe it, but not to the extent that I'm not willing to hear it or talk about it or discuss it. Friends, on both sides of the aisle, whether it's a political conservative or a liberal, political liberal, whether it's a Christian, whether it's a non-Christian, here's the thought. Why don't we try, A, not being embarrassed to make assertions, to say, I think this is true and I think that is false, and B, not accuse people who make assertions of being narrow-minded. Because when you make that accusation, you're making an assertion. Let's not be so narrow-minded that we rule out those who disagree with us simply because they disagree.